All right, let's talk about something that really separates the good players from the great ones in New State. I'm talking about mastering scope zeroing. Seriously, if you've ever wanted to just completely dominate at long range, you have got to understand this one mechanic. It is absolutely crucial.
You know the moment. We've all been there. You've got the perfect lineup, you're holding your breath. You squeeze that trigger on a target, say 300 meters out, and what happens? Your bullet just kicks up dust right at their feet. It is so frustrating, right? But look, there's a really clear reason why that happens. And even better, there's a simple fix.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to turn to the wisdom of Commander Wolfbratt. Now, this guy is a Marine Corps marksman, and he puts it, well, pretty bluntly. He says if you don't know how to zero that thing, you might as well be throwing rocks. So yeah, let's stop throwing rocks and let's start landing some shots.
Okay, let's dive right in. The number one reason your shots are dropping short, it's actually the simplest thing in the world, gravity. Yeah, that's it. The very second that bullet leaves the barrel of your rifle, it begins its long, slow fall back to earth. Doesn't matter how powerful your rifle is, gravity is the one enemy you can never beat. You can only account for it.
So this brings us to two super important terms you gotta know. Point of aim, we'll call it POA, and point of impact, or POI. Now, your point of aim is easy, right? It's just where you put your crosshair. But your point of impact, that's where the bullet actually lands after gravity's had its way. The whole point of zeroing, the entire art of it, is making those two things match up perfectly at a specific distance. Now, here's where the game just completely changes the rules on us. See, in the real world, zeroing is this whole big, complicated process. You're talking math, you need a stable shooting platform, you're making these tiny little physical clicks on the scope. It's a lot. But in New State, all that crazy complex work is done for you, with a single button press.
You know, Commander Wolfbratt actually calls this the cheater button, and honestly for good reason. The game's ballistic engine pretty much automates all that complex physics for you. You just tell the scope how far away your target is, and poof, it does all the heavy lifting, adjusting your aim internally to deal with all that bullet drop.
So how does this magic button actually work? Well, your default setting is 100 meters. Super simple. At that range, where you aim is where you hit. But let's say you change your 0 to 200 meters. What the game does is it automatically raises your point of aim internally. So you keep your crosshair dead on your target, and the game makes sure the bullet arcs perfectly to hit him at 200 meters. And yeah, it's the exact same idea for 300 meters, it's just making an even bigger adjustment for all that extra gravity. But, and this is a big but, you can't just blindly trust that button. This isn't some perfect firing range, right? You're in a dynamic, live fire situation. And this is where Commander Wolfbratt's #1 rule comes into play. You have to confirm your 0, always. And lucky for us, he's got a simple, actionable drill to do just that. Okay, so here's the drill. First, you bore sight. Just take a quick shot at a nearby wall, make sure you're generally on paper, you know? Next, set your 0 for about how far you think your target is. Let's go with 200 meters. And fire a little group of shots. Now this is the most important part. Confirm. You have to actually watch where those bullets land. Are they hitting high? Are they hitting low? This is your real-time feedback, telling you if the game's math is on point. Okay, so let's play this out. Imagine a pretty common scenario. You've zeroed for 200 meters, but your shots are just sailing right over the target's head. So that cheater button got you close, but it's not perfect. And you can't make those little micro adjustments to the scope like in real life, so what do? What's the pro move here? This is where the real skill comes in, that final layer, manual adjustment. So, in that last example, your shots were going too high, right? The fix for that is what we call a hold under. You just manually aim your crosshair a little bit below the target to compensate. And the opposite is true too. If your shots are falling short, you do a hold over. You aim slightly above the target. I'm telling you, this little bit of fine-tuning is what separates the amateurs from the pros. And that really brings us to the ultimate takeaway here, the big lesson for any aspiring marksman. That zeroing button in New State, it's not a magic bullet. Don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly powerful tool that does all the heavy math for you, but at the end of the day, it's your skill, your observation, and your ability to fine-tune that's going to land the shot. So let's just recap that path to long-range dominance. First, remember, gravity is always your real enemy. Second, use that in-game zeroing button as your awesome math shortcut. But third, and this is key, always confirm your 0 in-game.
Let the button get you close, and then use your eyes, use your skill, a little hold over or hold under to be absolutely precise. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. The game can do the math for you. The scope can make the adjustment. But when it all comes down to that one critical moment, can you make the shot? Because that's the real difference, isn't it? The difference between having the tool and having the skill.